Welcome to the GrowthPro Edge. We're here to help scale your business, build stronger teams, and sharpen your leadership skills. Hello, and welcome to the GrowthPro Edge. I'm your host, Denise Killian, with the GrowthPro Group. This week, we're going to be talking about employee motivation, how to motivate your folks to make sure that they stay with you, and how to do it in a genuine way. And we're going to be speaking with Amber Lambert with Betson. So let's get started and learn how we can grow today. Amber Lambert, welcome to the GrowthPro Edge. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Listen, I'm very excited to talk about employee motivation because I think it's something that so many companies struggle with. But before we delve into that, why don't you introduce yourself to our GrowthPro Edge audience and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Okay. Yeah. So my name is Amber Lambert, and I work for Betson. Right now, I help locations make more money with their arcades. But I used to own my own family entertainment center, and I managed some corporate-owned ones as well. So I've kind of done all of the different aspects, and I am an employee, so I also can tell you what motivates me. So, it's something that everybody either has employees, they are an employee, so it really, kind of touches everybody.
Right. It relates to us all. And I think to begin the conversation, you're starting it at such a perfect place. A lot of times when you move up the chain and you become a manager, whether it's a supervisor or a department head or a VP or a president or whatever that trajectory is, we forget about how do we feel, right? When the talking about employee motivation, what motivates you? And beginning your thought process when you're thinking about your employees, that's a great place to start. So, Amber, what motivates you as an employee?
Well, what motivates me and what motivates you might not be the same thing. So I think a lot of times we try to paint with such a broad brush where, we try to say, hey, this should motivate all of my employees, and it's not going to be the same. And I think, you'll end up looking at even generationally, the things that motivate younger generations don't motivate older generations. So for me, I love a lot of attaboys, but I also like to put food on my table, so that is important. So you can't overlook a good paycheck, but it depends on where they are in their career. But a lot of times, it's just hearing that you did a good job, or having somebody remember your birthday. It doesn't have to be something big to motivate somebody or to make them feel special or important or like they're part of the overall picture and not just a number in your scheme.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's funny. I was having this conversation with a group that I work with just recently, this week, in fact. And March 6th is National Employee Recognition Day. So they're talking about trying to do something, on that day for their team members and figuring it out, which I love the idea behind it. But the conversation quickly became, well, are people going to care about that? Are they going to think that's silly? Or, we gave out gift cards at Christmas and people complained about that. There's that sense sometimes that managers feel that, well, no matter what I do, people are going to complain about it. So why bother?
I think every day should be Employee Recognition Day, right? Like it shouldn't be one day. It's like Mother's Day, right? Celebrate me every day, not just one day of the year, right? So, yeah, I kind of agree with you in that aspect. Is that having a specific day might feel a little forced. But I also think that you do have to walk a fine line, right? Because there is that point, it's like giving somebody too cheap a tip. At some point, it becomes offensive. So, um, you know, in my location, I used to take a poll or it's like a survey when they'd get hired, and it would ask them what their favorite food was, what their favorite candy bar was, what their favorite drink was, things like that. And so then, when I come up with if they were doing a good job, I could bring them a candy bar, and it was more personalized, so it wasn't cheap. It felt more like I cared about them and, so it doesn't have to cost a lot, and sometimes just throwing money at something is too cheap, where putting the thought behind it actually costs you less money, but, means more.
And that's one of the favorite things. You and I have talked about this before. You shared that with me, and I just thought it was brilliant of having that quick little cheat sheet, as it were. Because listen, if you've got 50 employees, if you got 100 employees, if you got more than that, there's no way you're going to remember.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, Amber likes Reese's Pieces. Let me make sure I have those for her to tell her, hey, you did a really good job on that thing yesterday, or whatever it may be. But you're never going to remember it. But having that as a tacitile thing is a great resource. And it's the genuine spontaneity of that, I think, that makes it feel different than, oh, it's National Employee Appreciation Day. I guess we should do this thing. It becomes genuine.
It's the difference between, your spouse getting you flowers on Valentine's Day or just bringing you flowers on a Tuesday, right? Like the Tuesday feels better, feels more special than, oh, everybody got flowers this day. Like, now he can still get me flowers, but, like you said, it's the spontaneity and they're not expecting it.
Mhm. Absolutely. Why do you think the notion of motivation has shifted, of what used to work maybe doesn't work anymore? What do you think that shift is about?
I think our culture is going a little more towards, work-life balance, and I think that's probably a good thing. In our parents' and grandparents' age, you would, stay in the same job for, your entire career, you'd retire, they would pay your pension, and it's just not like that anymore. There's not the same kind of loyalty to the one company. There's not, um yeah, I mean, I think our younger generation of employees are kind of pulling us in the direction that a lot of other countries have gone where, you're not necessarily, living to work, you're working to live. And I think that there's some good in that balance and that sometimes us workaholics get kind of tied up in work being.
How do you get that, figure that out? What priority should you place as a manager on figuring out what motivates each of your employees?
It depends on what level you are in management, but I mean, your employees are everything, right? They're the ones that are driving your sales. They're not. You're in business because of them. You can't do all of those jobs. So, I think it's very important, and it's turnover costs you money. So, the happier your employees are, the less turnover, the more money you save. So it's still going to your bottom line. But just getting back to caring about people. But, I mean, I think you hit on a really good point about gamifying things. I think that's very important. You see that in a ton of brands, right? Like, look at Starbucks and their app. Their coffee is pretty standard and average. It's not the best, but you're I'm a loyal Starbucks because I got to get my stars, right? I got to collect the stars to get my free cup of coffee. And so gamifying stuff is definitely a motivation for employees and retaining employees and motivating.
If the culture's not there, I feel like nothing you do is going to make a difference if there's a problem with the culture.
Well, and I think sometimes when we put that toxic label on an employee, you kind of wonder, did you hire a toxic employee or did you create a toxic employee? What did you do as the boss or not do to create that environment for that person, right? I don't think you chose to hire somebody that was toxic. I think they tend to get that way for a reason, and usually there's something internally that you can look at if you're really honest with yourself and your culture and figure out why they got to that point.
Mhm. There's a great book. It's a little bit dated, but it's still a wonderful book, From Good to Great. I don't know if you've read that or not, but one of the best lessons that I took from that book was when there's something that's not quite right, as the leader, you'll look to yourself first. So whether that's a bad situation, an employee issue, or a productivity issue, or not hitting your numbers, you start with yourself. What am I doing? You look in the mirror. And when things are going really well, it's the outward. Look at what this person has done to contribute to the success. Look at what that person has done. But starting when it's not quite hitting the mark, starting with yourself and analyzing, am I doing this right or am I doing it wrong? What am I not doing that I should be doing, right?
Well, I think turning your pyramid upside down is another way to talk about it is, you're the servant lead. Your job is to serve your employees, and their job is to serve your guests, right? So, it's not the other way around, and I think when we start being the boss instead of being the leader, that's where things start falling apart. Um So, yeah, I think, just giving people a purpose is important in your culture to let them know why. It's not just, "Hey, because 'cause I'm paying you." Well, they can get paid anywhere, right? So, they wanna know why, and I mean, I've asked that question, "Why do we do things this way?" "Oh, we've always done it that way." That's not good enough for me. I need to know why. So, I think a lot of people are like that. They wanna know the why, why are they, um helping guests or whatever their job is.
And I think when people can connect the why, their motivation changes.
Mhm.
Right? When people have an understanding of this is the end goal, this is why it's the end goal, that allows them to be more connected to what they're doing that contributes to that if they feel a part of something.
Well, and I think at some point when you stop micromanaging somebody and start, if you just say, Here's where we want to get to. How would you get there?" Well, then they start taking ownership in that instead of giving them all the steps. I like to use the analogy about, the dishes. When my husband does the dishes, I'm always like, "Oh, well, you should put them in this way." No, just tell them that you want them clean. And if they're clean, then who cares how they get done? So,
How much do you think that autonomy and that ownership plays into the longevity of an employee?
oh, a ton, a ton. The more you feel connected to a company, the longer you're gonna stay. So, I mean, nobody wants to be micromanaged. Nobody. There's nobody that says, "Hey, want you to give me every step of the way." They wanna feel like they're a part of something and what's their next step? Like, do you have a path for them? I know in the family entertainment center industry, sometimes the path is pretty short, right? You're like, okay, well, you're either supervisor or you're manager, but you can do little things to get certified on bumper cars or get certified on, you know, let them learn how to pick up a skill like fixing games or something. There's so much they can learn about the industry. And the more that put into your employees, the more they're going to give back to you.
Mhm. Absolutely. I want to talk about burnout because I think that's the death of motivation. That there is everything good to an extreme can be bad. Everyone's strength can also be their weakness, and right, if it's an extreme. Burnout to me is that motivation gone too far, that they haven't hit that balance. What what impact do you think, is that more of a motivation issue or is that a leadership issue when you've got people who are just coming to you saying, "I'm just burned out"?
I would say that that's probably more of a leadership issue, but I would say that, um, s sometimes you just gotta switch things up, right? People get bored doing the same thing. If you're pushing the button 100 times a day, let somebody go make some food or do something different for a little bit, So, make sure all your employees are cross-trained and can switch up to different positions. Don't pigeonhole them into one thing. Uh, One of the places I managed when I got there, they had All of the guys were out working out on the go-kart track, and all the girls were doing party hosting. And I was like, "Oh, we're gonna swap this," and some of the guys were some of the best party hosts that I had, and some of the girls, man, they learned how to fix cars, and they felt so motivated that they learned a new skill. So, just don't pigeonhole people into what you think that they're gonna be good at, because you'll be surprised. People surprise you every day.
So if you could give one little nugget of advice of something that people could change or start doing right now to help motivate their team, what would it be?
I'd say listen. Talk to them and listen without defending. I think a lot of times we get very defensive, especially if we're the business owner. It's like calling my baby ugly. Yeah, so just listen to them and be open to try new things. You'll be
Yeah,
surprise you.
fantastic. All right, Amber, we are coming up to the end of our time here on the Growth Pro Edge. So I need to ask you, since we are all about growth, what do you do to keep yourself motivated?
Oh, I kind of gamify things for myself as well. So you don't necessarily need somebody else to do that. I create little goals for myself to meet little goals. So I'd say that's probably the most motivating thing for me.
That's fantastic. Love it. I love making a game. I work with someone who is a genius at making anything into a game. And I am telling you, it's always so much fun to talk to her because I'm like, listen, I'm trying to do this with this team that I'm working on and I want to make it fun. Go. And she will come back to me with like, here's 7 options of different fun things that you can do. And I'm like, I love you. But it does it, you got to make it fun. You got to make it exciting. So gamifying, big fan of the game. Amber, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that? How can they reach you?
Oh my gosh, I'm everywhere. I'm I'm on all the social media platforms. You can reach out to the company vetson.com. I'll be on there. So A Lambert at vetson.com if you want to email me directly. So there's just a ton of ways. Or you can just call Traintainment and they'll get you in touch.
There we go. Excellent. Well, Amber, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And I know there's some really good ideas here that I think people can start implementing right away and some opportunities to make some shifts and just listen. There you go. Thanks for being here, Ms. Amber. Thank you so much, Amber, for your time today and for your insights. And I certainly hope that today's conversation helped give you some tools for a mindset shift and to sharpen your edge and accelerate your growth. If you enjoyed this show, please take a moment to rate us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. That way, it helps us reach more leaders like you. And visit thegrowthpro.com for show notes, the full transcript, and a video version of this episode. If you're ready to grow your team, your business, or yourself, schedule a free growth call with one of our coaches. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank our sponsors, Vetson, Embed, Party Center Software, ANA Global, Simnox, Schaefer, and Roller. Until next time, I'm Denise Killian with the GrowthPro Group. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for the extraordinary.